I'm using my old computer. I have another computer. It's just I'm not used to it yet because it's a
Take
Mac.
your time. Take your time. Let's slow down.
Here we go. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Typical Skeptic podcast. I have an awesome guest with me today. Today I have with me Zara Starchild, and her website is zarastarchild.com. And today we're going to be talking about soul codes, divine blueprints, light language, starseed remembrance, and soul codes. We're going to talk about what they are and how they activate dormant aspects of consciousness. Divine blueprints, the original energetic design of human being and how it's reawakened. Light language, how vibrational tones, symbols, and sounds bypass the mind and speak directly to the soul. And starseed remembrance, soul origins, and energetic recalibration. And as I said again, the speaker today we have is Zara Starchild, and she's going to tell us a little bit about herself. And Zara, thank you so much for coming back on. How are you?
Hi, welcome. I mean, thank you. I'm usually doing the hosting. Well, Zoom. So thanks for hosting, Rob. Thanks for having me on. And welcome everybody for joining us. Yeah.
And for the audience that might have not saw one of our podcasts before, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So Rob and I did a couple podcasts back in 2025. And I can't even remember what we were talking about. Maybe the light body, the first conference, and then the first podcast, and then the second podcast we were talking about violet alchemy healing. So I am primarily a healer.
I want to tell you this real quick before you go into this. You did a healing session for me, and it was amazing. Like, I'll give you a testimonial on that. Like, that was you put me into like a semi-hypnosis type state. Do you remember this? It was pretty awesome.
I remember the session. I don't remember I don't know what your experience was of it, because you were kind of, as it usually happens, like people after the healing session, we feel a little like stoned.
Yeah.
So you couldn't really articulate. So how did it unfold for you?
It was pretty good. It was really good. I thought I got a lot from it, for real. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you notice any shifts or changes after that?
For sure. Yeah. Like in my whole energetic body, and the way I felt, and like, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So sorry, you were going to tell the people about yourself.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, let's just talk about that for a second, because this is what I so to tell about myself a little bit. I have been a seeker in regards to the spiritual realm forever, since I was like 15 and interested in tarot cards. So always sort of like looking for, just curious about what are other people doing? How are people doing this stuff? How does energy healing work? How can I do energy healing? And so I studied different forms of energy healing. I've studied different forms of meditation. And the one sort of pathway that I've found that is foundational for myself, and I've been teaching it for close to 20 years now, is this pathway called awakening your light body. And we talked about that in the first one, which is really this, it's a set of 6 volumes of home study meditations. And these are not mine, but this course is the course that helped me figure out more about who I am as a larger being than just the personality. Started to develop my awareness about my empathic skills, my awareness about the universe beyond the physicality, lots of different gifts open. And it's basically guided meditations, which I've never been diagnosed with ADHD. I kind of self-diagnosed myself a few years ago. And what I find with the guided meditations, when somebody's guiding you through the meditations, is it's a lot easier for the ADHD mind to stay in meditation, because somebody's always cueing you about what to think about or where to put your awareness. So I found that incredibly, incredibly powerful. And that has always been, since I found that course and those techniques and those tools have been a part of my being and my way of life for over 20 years now. And so I use those tools, basically how to access my light body, to do everything that I do, which is meditations, ceremonies, healing, transmissions, and now even working again. I'm working again in the public, which I took a break for about 3 years, but I went back to work since the last time we spoke, just this past October. And
Wow.
and I'm back in the workplace. And what has been coming to me through guidance is really like I'm being asked to take all of those tools that I coach people on in regards to being a light worker and being out there in the workplace, being an acupuncture needle for the light, for the love to be on earth, and working with personalities from the heart center, right? And transmuting the energies of the workspace, because you're the powerful person that has consciousness about what's extra, right? So now I'm in the workplace working with the personalities, and I'm like, ooh, this is really challenging. Like this is tough, because a few different things with that, right? It's like when you're interacting with different personalities and you get triggered, it's very easy to react from that trigger instead of take a break, take a step back and unwind what's in your own soul that's creating that trigger to manifest itself, right? So I did some of that this morning, which was very revelatory. I have a particular personality at work that, whatever, I don't need to get into it, but I took myself back through this age regression meditation, which is in the very, very first volume of this light body course. And it brought me back to being, I think I was like 2 or 3 years old, and my mom was just holding my hand like this, shouting no in my face, no, no, no. But the reaction that I was having in my body was like, I'll show you, I'm going to break stuff. Right. My like 2-year-old toddler self was mad because mom was saying no to her, and I was going to break stuff. And so what I'm finding in my job right now is I'm getting told, no, you can't do these things. And my 2-year-old self that I didn't know until this morning, my 2-year-old self is like coming in, well, I'm going to be spiteful and yada, yada. And I'm just noticing all of this stuff inside of myself. So it's very, very interesting to be back in the workplace and spirit sort of forcing me to use the tools that I've been coaching people to use for the last 10 years or so.
I love that. That's interesting. Like, and I guess you have a job where you're able to do that. Like, you're able to, because like sometimes people like they can't mix like the esoteric stuff into their work field, but like you're able to like do that. I take it. Like,
yeah, well, it's most of us can't really do that openly. But like, so for instance, for those of us that are working to sort of awaken the light body, what we learn is how to navigate and regulate our emotional response, right? So rather than reacting, like for instance, my boss is like, you can only do this, you cannot do this, right? And that's a normal thing for a boss to say, but my 2-year-old self is in there like, I want to do this, but I want to do this. And so I'm getting really agitated, and I can sense in my body like this power struggle that's wanting to happen. Like I'm wanting to power struggle with this person. But consciously I do not want to power struggle with my boss.
yeah.
Right. And so it's an internal process. I'm not out there like waving my crystals around. It's this internal process of like, oh, okay, I see my boss is now my teacher. I still have this 2-year-old self inside of my energy body that's really angry at being told no and thinks that she can't direct her life because she was told no at 2 years old. So it's just a very interesting process to use all of the tools and to recognize the mirror in that in the reflection of the oneness, as spirit brings you all of the stuff that's internal so you can see it externally. And most of us are just reacting to that external. That's the difference between like becoming conscious, is like when we're reacting to that external trigger, we're not directing our lives. We're acting from reaction versus how do I want to respond to this? How do I want to feel in my body? right? Because my boss is agitating me. And so I'm like, how do I want to feel in my body? I don't want to feel this agitation for sure. So let me go inward and sort of understand what's actually in here.
You know
Right.
what?
And then
I gotta you make a really good point, because like I told someone today, I was telling my friend, I said, I've noticed that like a lot of times lately, I find myself getting like majorly triggered, like, you know what I mean? And it could be over something like really stupid, but like I'll just get like, like triggered by it for some reason, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's, like maybe external factors that are building up in my life that like I'm stressed out about, and then I see something and that's like the tipping point, or if it's something else that I need to work out inside myself. Part of me thinks it's, yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that? Like,
so, I mean, I'm not going to say, I'm not going to say anything for sure. I hate to say things for sure. But what I can say is, in regards to my experience and the things that I've studied, there are spiritual laws at play that sort of organize the physical reality. And so, just like the law of gravity, you can't see the gravity, you see the experience of gravity, you see something falling, right? So, there's the law of karma, and there's the law of oneness and reflection. And to, I mean, I could speak on the law of oneness and reflection for probably a week, but in a nutshell, the law of oneness and reflection, it states that everything in the universe, everything in the physical and non-physical world is of the same body, is of the same source, is of the same essence. So like the matrix, right? So like it's all energy, it's all one big soup of energy. And there's this zeitgeist that's coming up to the surface in our consciousness right now about the matrix and how it's all a hologram. And that's a really good metaphor for what it actually is. And I'm not going to say that that's the truth of the matter. It's just this awareness that we're having, because it does act like a hologram. So if all of us are aspects of God's source energy, internally and externally, look at my messy room, internally and externally, if all of us are aspects of God's source energy, then our minds, our beliefs, our thoughts are projected outwards and then reflected back to us in that hologram that we're talking about. So when we have the villain in the external, we're going to call the villain the one that's triggering us. So when the villain is in the external, they are also a part of that God source energy, and something within our being has attracted that into our lives. What I believe is that we're all on this journey to rediscover our godhood or our goddesshood, our source essence, our creatorhood. And so what's blocking us from getting to where we want to go and creating what we want to create are these internal beliefs, feelings of self-doubt, separation, not enoughness, whatever we have there. So the villain comes into our lives to reflect this belief or this piece of our being that has not yet been healed or integrated or brought back into wholeness. So in this little experience just this morning, for instance, the meditation takes you through this age regression where you go back, okay, this is the experience that you're having right now. This is the trigger. And how can you, in the last 5 years, when did you experience that sensation before? When did you experience that similar theme with somebody else? And then it takes you back and it takes you back and it takes you back. And when was the very first time that you had that experience, right, of being in that frustration? So the theme that I was working with on myself today was this feeling like I want to do this. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to create. And then an authoritative symbol, right? The boss the authoritative, comes in and says, no, you cannot do that. You must do this my way. So in looking at it through the law of oneness and reflection, and it took me a week or two, Rob, to sit down and like, okay, this is me. Let me check it out. So it took me a week or so to actually sit down and say, okay, let me fix this inside myself instead of projecting like she's this and she's that and she's this. So let me look inside what's here. So that self-examination, that self-awareness, and that's what those villains come into our life to do, is to say, okay, look inside of yourself. What's going on there? So going back through this age regression process, I discover that, I can't even say what the scene was. I just saw in my mind's eye my mother holding my hand like this and shouting no at me. So whatever it was that I was wanting to do at 2 years old, no, you cannot do that. So it imprinted in my subconscious all kinds of different themes, like I can't direct my own life, that someone's going to stop me from doing what I want to do. You know what I mean? Themes like that. And so those are the themes that are stopping me from actually creating the reality that I'd like to create for myself. And so the universe brings my boss in to reflect that I'm still holding those. Right? And so that's the process of healing and unwinding. And that's what I do with people. When I'm working with someone one-on-one in a private healing session, I'm asking them questions. I'm seeing what's going on in their lives. And then we go back and we unplug that original wound, that original belief system that says you can't have what you want. You can't do what you want. You're not the director of your own life. You have to listen to somebody else, as a theme. So when we look at, like, for instance, you're saying you're having a lot of experience right now with being triggered. When you look at those triggers in your life, are they of the same theme? I'm asking you.
I'm not sure. Themes? I mean, yeah, maybe different stuff. I guess I find myself reacting to stuff I see on the internet, or like or messages, or whatever. It could be basically stuff that that makes sense. If that you know what I mean, like.
Well, when you are, so look at, and we're not going to do this today because it is really vulnerable. But when you're looking at those triggers in your life, what is the theme of, especially if you're experiencing more than one at a time, it's like, what's the theme here? Is it a sense of powerlessness manifesting in different forms? I feel powerless when I see these things. I feel restricted, I feel unappreciated, unvalued, right? So like you determine what the theme of it is, and then you go in and unwind.
Yeah.
And bring that back to wholeness.
I think a lot of it has to do with like the mass censorship that I've had to deal with. Like, I get my first YouTube taken down, then getting my audio podcast demonetized, and then having to rebuild from each thing, every time. And like, and so maybe not feeling that sense of like, accomplishment for knowing what I put into this, you know what I mean? And then I see other things, and then that causes me to get triggered because I'm like, well, I should be at that level, or I should be, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So there's a theme there. There's a theme there just in regards to having your work being taken away from you, or having your accomplishments being, it's like having your sandcastle smashed.
Yeah.
By the big kid.
Yeah.
So anyways, we could go back and find out what that cause was if we wanted to. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, did you want to get into some of the stuff we were going to talk about today? Because I know,
let's talk about it.
So we were going to talk about divine blueprints and soul codes and light language, and I guess we should start off with divine blueprint, right? Because that's like, I guess, our energy.
So lots of things to say about the divine blueprints, but what I really want to hone in on is like the divine blueprint or the divine plan for our lives, and how it's scripted for the most part by our own souls, by our higher self, in counsel with higher beings. This information has come through from many, many mystics and many, many people that have had near-death experiences, that have gone and spoken to their councils and their teams of light. So without going into all of that, the mythology and the theology behind it, let's just take that concept as a platform to work from. So the divine blueprints that we come into this lifetime, we bring with us in our soul's body, our soul's essence. Our divine blueprints are kind of like the map for our life, the interests that we have, the passions we have in our heart, and those passions guide us along the way to the experiences and opportunities that are specifically designed for our soul, that we've agreed to for the most part, in regards to what am I going to learn in this lifetime? What am I going to experience in this lifetime? And also maybe how am I going to serve the world or the common good or the one of all in this lifetime? And so the divine blueprint for our life is what magnetically draws us into the future, magnetically draws us to our interests, magnetically draws us into researching information or training even to do the things that we are designed to do. So for instance, I'm not only a spiritual coach and a spiritual counselor. One of the threads that's always been there in my life was in regards to fitness. And I never would have considered that in my younger age. But when I went to college, we had a sort of a do-it-yourself associate's degree program where I went. So you had to take more credits, but you could take whatever you wanted. And my younger self took classes like aerobics and rock climbing and Nautilus programs, and just got into fitness. And I never realized that I would have a career in fitness. But from age 28 till now, I've always had a career in fitness. I've always had a side gig in fitness. And that's a really, we don't really think of it like your group fitness instructors or your personal trainers or your aquafit or your swim lesson teachers. We don't think of that as like a high calling, but it's actually a really, really important service to the community. It's helping so many people in the community be healthy, maintain proper endorphin levels, be happier. So it's just a really interesting, like, each one of us has these different threads in our being that sort of guides us into our calling. And it's the mind really that says, no, that's not worth doing, or that's less than this, or this, that, and the other thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Yeah. So yeah, and then this ties into like soul codes, like what they are and how they activate like dormant aspects of ourselves, right? Like,
yeah.
And how do we tap into those? Like,
so for the most part, what I would say is that for the most part, our divine blueprint is sort of always sort of guiding us and nudging us in the right direction. And then we have our own free will in regards to whether or not we're going to follow that nudge. The soul codes, how do I put this? The soul codes live, so we have our chakra system. And when we were talking about the light body, what I was saying in that podcast is we imagine that our soul is inside of our body. Like when we're born, the soul comes into the body. And when we pass away, the soul leaves the body. From my understanding, really, our soul is so big, so large, so infinite, so powerful that it cannot fit inside of our body. And so what is closer to the truth is that our physical body is inside of the soul body, is inside of the light body. And this light body of ours is infinite. So we can project our consciousness through our light body. And this is how I imagine there's all this talk about telepathy and remote viewing these days. And what I believe really is that it's just a matter of projecting our consciousness through our light body, through our light bodies, and accessing that information in different planes of existence. Now, our soul codes are in the higher realms. Our soul codes are in the higher realms of our being. When we are embarking on the next evolution or the next unfoldment of our being, the next leveling up, because whenever we get to, like for instance, how many subscribers do you have on your podcast?
I mean, well, I have like 6,000 on YouTube, 6,000 on Rumble, 6,000 on Spotify. Then I have some on social media. So and then I have a Patreon. So it's different. Like, I wouldn't even know how to,
but
some of those
6,000, I would say, for some people, 6,000 would be a goal, right? Like that would be great. 6,000, fantastic. That's great. But when we get to the 6,000, it's like, okay, well then what's next? How about 10,000? When we get to the 10,000, it's how about what's next, right? This is part of like the human mind is like, I reached my goal. I've overachieved my goal. What's next? What's next? What's next? Right? So the soul codes are in the higher realms of our being. They come down through the soul star chakra and they come through the crown, the brow, and they move through the chakra system into our body, into full embodiment. So what's next for us? And this is just one aspect of soul codes, but pertaining to what I'm here to talk about. What's next for us? Like, for instance, what's next for 2026? So in 2026, we have our mind's agenda, our personality's agenda, and we have our soul's agenda. The soul knows the path, knows the blueprint. The soul and the light body are above the labyrinth of your physical life. They can see the pathway of the maze that we can't see because the walls are so high. So the soul's codes are downloadable energy packages that support your consciousness to grow and expand and understand, but also to sort of see the pathway ahead. Like, so for instance, if you are at, 6,000 subscribers, and you want to jump to 20,000 subscribers. How long it's going to take you, we don't know. But if we're accessing our soul's codes, the soul's codes for that sort of public recognition and impact of your podcast, the soul's codes, your soul's has the codes for that amplification from 6,000 to 20,000, say.
It's funny you say 20,000 because I used to have 20,000 before they took my channel down. But I digress,
Yeah. But the soul's codes would come down as these energy. Oh, you know what? Oh, I'm on stream. We're in what is this called? Stream what?
StreamYard, yeah.
StreamYard. We're in StreamYard. In the Zoom, I actually have like a background with soul codes coming down in my Zoom background. But anyways, they come down in these packages. And so let's say I'm looking for the soul codes to reach 20,000 subscribers to have that kind of impact on the world for my work, right? My impact to reach 20,000 people. So I'm going to attune to and meditate with my guides, my light, my higher self, my divine presence, and then open to receive these soul codes for the path, the plan on how to achieve that 20,000 goal. Now, the soul codes aren't just necessarily this is how you do it. do A, do B, do C, do, do these things. The soul codes are also the guidance that will take you inwards so that you can energetically pull out the conditioning that you've received in this lifetime that's holding the blocks at 6,000 or 10,000, or holding the blocks to say, when I get to 20,000, it's going to get swept away again. Right? Those fears and those blocks that we've had. And that was what we were talking about at the very beginning. We all have these energy blocks. Most people call them energy blocks, but the energy blocks are really fears, beliefs, traumas that we have experienced that kind of crystallized into a version of reality that we see around us. And as I was saying before, unconsciously, my being was under the experience that I can't direct my own life, that there will always be an authoritative figure that will redirect me or restrict me in some way. That's not a conscious thought that I had in my brain. That's an unconscious belief system from my 2-year-old self.
Yeah.
But that unconscious belief system from my 2-year-old self has created the energy blocks that have made it difficult for me to actually manifest some certain things in my life.
Wow.
So the soul codes come in and they bring the illumination, like, hey, instead of projecting this disharmony and this spitefulness towards your boss, even if it's in your own head, instead of doing that, why don't you take a little look and see what you can find in there and dissolve it within you? Because if it wasn't in there within me, then her behavior wouldn't bother me.
Yeah.
So the soul codes are bringing that sort of illumination in to say, okay, you want to go from 6,000 to 20,000. However, your 4-year-old self has had this. When you were 4 years old, you were on a beach and you were building this incredible sandcastle, and this big kid came over and kicked it down and made you feel like the world would never allow you to have these big, beautiful sandcastles. Right? And so $20,000, every time you get to $20,000, somebody comes around and kicks it down. Right? So it creates that kind of a belief system, and that belief system is reflected in that holographic experience of our life. So the soul codes come in to help us illuminate that. And they also come in to, let me just get the words here, to help to spark up or ignite the dormant gifts that are buried underneath those belief systems. So as soon as those belief systems are swept away through the illumination and the healing, then those dormant gifts can start to come out and unfold. And those dormant gifts will say, okay, well, now that we've gotten that out of the way, 20,000 is a breeze. 50,000 is the next goal. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's not, and so it's not usually just one thing that's holding us back. It's usually like a little menagerie. It's a little menagerie of things that are holding us back. But the soul codes are these energies from your higher self and your divine presence that come in at the right time. And often we need to be in a state of receptivity in order to receive them. So when we're going, doing, busy, hustle, we're not receiving soul codes. When we relax, when we open, when we set the intention, when we calm our nervous system down, and we allow ourselves some deep breaths, and we really set that connection to connect, or set that intention to connect, that's when the soul codes can start to download into our energy body first. And as I said, they come from the soul star chakra into the crown chakra, and then into the brow chakra. And this is where we start to get the vision and we start to get the ideas and the new insights and the new perspectives. And then they come into the throat chakra, which is when we start to express those things. And then they come into the heart chakra when we start to embody the way of being. That would be our next unfoldment of way of being. And then they ground more into the lower chakras, into the creation, into the physical manifestation of the earth plane life. So that's kind of the process of downloading your soul codes.
I love that. So downloading the soul code. So downloading the soul codes are a way to kind of break down old paradigms in a way, like or old belief systems that we have entrained in us from maybe childhood. Is kind of what you're saying, right?
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, part of it. So they're basically, the soul codes are energetic packages. So like, for instance, a book, right? So this book perhaps could contain your soul codes for 2026. And it comes in, but it's got all kinds of data in there, all kinds of information in there. And some of it is about releasing those old blocks and old belief systems. And some of it is about igniting those dormant gifts and opening the pathways of direction on where to go.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah. And that's kind of what you do, is you help people kind of get into their new soul codes is what you're saying. Like they're like discover their, so is that
so we're gonna have an actual ceremony on Saturday, this Saturday, which is why I was reaching out to you, because I wanted to share that with everybody. So this Saturday we're going to do a 90-minute ceremony downloading your soul codes, and we're going to bring the violet flame through, and the violet flame helps to dissolve and transmute energies in the chakras, so that new light can come in, the new soul codes can come in. And what happens is, as we download and anchor these soul codes into our physical body through the energy centers, when we step forward in our life in the physical world, it's like you have the map inside of you. So when you get to the crossroad of like, should I go here or should I go here? Should I take this job or should I take this job? Should I move to this area or should I stay put? Those kinds of decisions will kind of light up for you because you have the map inside of you energetically. I'll tell you a little experience. This was many, many years ago. I was living in Bath in the UK, in England. And I think it was my 10-year high school class reunion. But I was living in England, and my 10-year high school class reunion was coming up. And it was like, this is an example of the soul code sort of being alive. There was something in me that was like, you have to go to your class reunion. And my personality, my mind was like, why would I want to go to my class reunion? Like, I just left those people. I couldn't wait to get away from those people in high school. Why would I want to do that? But as the deadline kept approaching and I'm in another country, I just kept getting that hit. Like, you have to go to your class reunion. You have to go to your class reunion. And so eventually I said, okay, well, I guess I'm going to go to my class reunion. So I packed up, I left England. I came back to the US. I went to my class reunion. And I met the wife of a friend of mine from high school, and she offered me a job. And I was making, and this is when my fitness career started. I was making $8 an hour working for Curves for Women in the little gym.
I remember Curves. They used to have those here in West. I live in Western Pennsylvania. They used to have Curves here. I remember that.
Yeah. I started in the gym as a fitness tech. And from there, I became like the regional director of like New York and Vermont. And it was like a 6 or 7 year career. And it was the best. It was a great job. It was a great job, but it put me on the path. It put me on a life path that was already written. And I would say prior to that, for that entire year up to that, I was super depressed. I was really depressed. And I was really like, what am I doing with my life? My life is passing me by. Nothing's happening. What am I going to do with my life? And that was that receiving of the soul code of intuition to like move back home to my country and go to my class reunion that my personality had no interest in going, because that's where the opportunity was. That was where the doorway was.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that, why it's important, right? Why the soul codes are important, why the map is important, because without that sort of inner nudge, I never would have gone to my class reunion. I never would have left England. Well, I probably would have left England, but not for that purpose.
Yeah. Wow. Did you like England? Have you traveled a lot in your life, or like have you been like all different countries and stuff like that?
I've been a lot. Yeah, I've done a lot of traveling. The last place.
Sorry, the reason why I asked that is I interview a lot of people, and it seems to be a lot of people in our community. They like to travel a lot. That's, I figured maybe you've been to a lot of places. Like
Lots of places. Yeah.
Where have you went? I mean, like, have you been like
I've been all over. Yeah, I've been all over. So like in my late 20s, I went to England, I went to Scotland, I went to Ireland. I spent quite a big deal, a big part of my time there, visiting the sacred sites of Stonehenge and the different stone circles and Glastonbury. I did a bunch in Europe as well. But recently, it was the last big trip that I did was in 2019, and I went to Egypt. And I was in Egypt for a couple of weeks. So I got to go to the pyramids, many of the temples, the Sphinx. We actually, you can go inside of the pyramid. You have to pay a lot of money. So our tour went and paid a lot of money to get us to go and be able to go inside of the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid. And so we spent a couple hours inside the king's chamber of the pyramid doing some meditations. Yeah, it was really, really nice. Yeah.
That is cool. It's really cool. Like, yeah, I still want to go to Egypt. I haven't been to Egypt yet. I'd love to go, wow, that's amazing. So what time is your event this Saturday? And I have the link up on the screen here, guys, and it's in the chat, and I'll put it in the description. So yeah, tell us about the event and like what time is it and everything.
Yeah, so we're gonna start at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's probably going to be about 90 minutes. And like I said, we're going to do some violet flame washing, and then we're going to guide you to receive your soul codes for the year for 2026. And this is a ceremony that I've done for 7 years annually, and it started in a little coffee shop in Red Hook, New York.
Wow.
7 years ago. So I've been doing it every year for 7 years. And what was I going to say? Okay, so we download the soul codes through the energy body and the chakras, and then we're going to give them to the earth and to the center of the earth with the belief system and intention that the earth is a conscious being, that Mother Gaia is alive and she is conscious, and she recognizes us, she hears us. And so when we offer our soul codes into the grid work of the earth and the core of Gaia, she will energetically respond by supporting us and bringing the resources that we need to manifest those soul codes, to manifest our next sort of unfolding for the year in the highest way with grace, because we're activating that bridge between heaven and earth intentionally and offering the codes into the earth so she can plan how to allow the resources to appear to us. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That sounds awesome. Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm talking, I'm like, am I talking clearly?
No, yeah. This is great. Yeah, this is really great. Yeah. And one more thing that we're going to talk about today before we go is light language. Like, did you want to touch on that a little bit? Like, and how?
Thank you. Yeah. I forgot about that. So actually, what I was hoping to do was just offer you guys a little healing activation with some light language.
I love light language. I really do. It always works for me. I mean, when people can do it well, it really, yeah, it's a
channel. When it's done correctly, it's a channeled transmission. Yeah. I was in, did a speaking spot at the New Life Expo in New York City this past, I think it was November. And Judy Satori is there. So for people that are fans of light language, Judy Satori was there and Jody Sonora. And I received, as a speaker, I was able to go to all of their events as well. And I received an incredible energetic activation back in November from the two of them. And it was very, very intense light language. So for those of you who don't know what light language is, it sounds like gibberish, but it's really like a sound of creation. So often when I'm doing the violet alchemy healing, which I did for Rob, I'm speaking in light language. And what I tell people generally is the sounding supports the transmission of the energy. And I generally say that just as like a layman's term kind of thing. But the sound is actually part of energetic creation. So that's why it's called light language, because we're actually like speaking the sounds and the tones into creation. So let me, so I'm thinking I'll just go into channel for a minute and offer some codes, and then I'll tell you what they are when we're done. How does that sound?
That sounds good. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
What do we need to do? Do we just need to close our eyes, or what should we do?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just going to get myself comfy, and then you guys
You have a
can.
cool chair. I like your chair.
Thanks.
Is that comfortable? It looks really comfortable.
It's really comfortable, and it's got a little kick out here, so I can like recline in it. So it's really nice. Oops.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to say a little prayer. Dear Mother, Father God, we call upon you as the one, the giver of life, the creator of all. We come to you in service and surrender, but also as co-creator, for your will is our will. Our will is thy will. And together we bring forth the new earth for all resides in true divine harmony. We are forever surrounded by beauty, abundance, grace, and joy. We stand in truth. We see the God, Goddess in all, and we radiate the love of our I Am presence throughout all eternity. Amen. Aho. So what is coming through is a transmission of grace is what's wanting to come through. So the light language that I'm about to speak, and I can feel it kind of bubbling up within me. So it's actually difficult to talk over it. The light language that's about to come forward is sort of a blessing to help remove obstacles in your life or to help lift the weight that you have been carrying. So whatever you've been struggling with lately, whatever you have been confused about, whatever has been seemingly heavy in your life, or whatever you've been trying to accomplish that you may have been experiencing some obstacles to, just set the intention right now to receive grace for that. So it's kind of like go back to that old, the old idea, give it to God, right? So your struggles, the complications, the confusion, whatever is going on in the mind or in the heart, I'm going to ask you just to offer it up to God. And maybe just one of the things I like to do is a little mind trick for myself when my head is spinning on something, on a problem, chewing on a problem. Should I do this or should I do that? Or should I do this or should I not do this? Whenever my mind is doing something like that and I can't figure the answer out, I will literally say, I'm not going to think about this for a week. And I energetically and visually kind of put it in a box and put it on a shelf for the angels to take care of. And in a week, if they haven't taken care of it, maybe we'll examine it again. But so that's what I'm asking you guys to do before we get into this light language. Whatever you're struggling with, whatever might have been seeming hard for the last however many months or weeks, wrap it up in a box right now and just put it up on a shelf, just symbolically giving it to God, giving it to the angels, and then closing your eyes and relaxing your body And set the intention to open and be willing to receive the assistance and the grace that is available to you right now and in every moment. Mbah rahakotunda hite se ura debe ishalakita rahalakotum. Enagida rahala sete hushwa halakiteram. Lakitosa enagita rahalamoto esheya. Alokote neke ranamondoye. Esenambuta hisehe nyakwata. Enegucha chasha lugochete mausa ikida ute. Enagita rahalaksund uroma duata. Kote sate unde karakata rumata sarekium. Ala oye yamagwata eka rosale le o ndoye shakota hiniki. Enemazado zezete ujwe de undarama de zeze kutate shokoto yerama. Ledro harana kate utanja lokule lamara. Sarahondoyete, nekitase uta sholo ba iana rota iselekita yete usha. Enehera kuta dia katasandoya makute rohla matasete undoyi. Kira, kusande ese orona maite. Kora, kiteselele kutonde nemeshe uotorani alaka. Arosolom, anida, rana kutoshe yanakita yesara unne malaki, utanayata setera kutoramata leki shonai alaka. Haro do sendama horona ma kite sheshishakondo yene de rumba. And I just heard, we are complete. And so before I open my eyes, I'm going to speak a little bit about what was happening there. There was a message that was coming through, and I say generally that when I'm doing light language, if it's meant to be understood, it'll be translated into English. And one of the things that was coming through to be understood was that the angels, the guides were saying that we so very, very often think that we are alone and that we have to do it all ourselves. And so we very often struggle with our life in trying to figure it all out on our own and trying to push through the struggles and trying to make it all happen. And when we are doing that, our guides, our spirit guides and our angels are allowing us to do that. So it's kind of like the parent that is allowing the child to try to figure it out by themselves on their own, and only helping the child when the child comes and says, like, I can't do it. Can you help me? Can you help me figure this out? Can you teach me something here? So when the child comes to the parent and says, hey, I can't figure this out. Can you open this for me? Can you fix this for me? That's when the parent comes in. And it's very similar to our spirit guides and our angels. They're wanting to help us. They're there for us. They're watching us struggle, but they will not interfere because they don't want to disturb our free will choice, which is engaged in doing it all of ourselves right now. So what they're saying is that the simple act of listening, receiving, and setting the intention to give that struggle over to God, to give that struggle over to the angels, will begin to open up for you a new understanding and an opportunity to build a stronger relationship with this invisible team of light that you have around you all the time. One of the spiritual teachings that I received many, many years ago is that when we take one step towards spirit takes 10 steps towards us. And so this very simple act of saying, okay, God, angels, universe, whatever you want to say, God, angels, universe, take this burden from me, take this struggle from me, help me out with this. And you put it on the shelf for the week. The angels, the teams of light are like, cool, we have a job. We're going to help you out. And we're going to help you out in miraculous ways so that your personality and your mind cannot refute our the reality of our being, the reality of our relationship. They want to prove to us that they are there and that they are helping and that they are working with us and that spirit is for us. And so the more that we offer up to the angels for help, the more assistance and grace that we can receive. They won't interfere because they won't interfere when we are locked in the stubbornness of trying to figure it all out on our own. But as soon as we release that conditioning that we have to do it ourselves, and we start to ask for help from the invisible realm, from our angels, from our guides, that opens the door for more and more grace, more and more assistance to come through, more and more guidance, and more intuitive information to sort of flashbulb in our minds. And so that was some of what they were. That was more of an expanded version of what they were saying. But they were basically saying, we're super happy to help. We're super happy to be here. You don't have to do it all yourself. And so, thank you.
That was great. That was really good. I enjoyed that, and it was a huge help too, I thought so, seriously.
Awesome. Thanks,
yeah.
Rob.
Wow. Yeah. Well, do you want to tell people where they can find you? And yeah, sorry. That was really good. Yeah.
Thanks. So zarastarchild.com, we revamped the website, which I'm really excited about. We also have a whole library on the website of some Violet Alchemy healings that with different themes that you can just download and listen to on your own. And I'm available for private healings with Violet Alchemy Healing, Akashic Records. And I've been doing this really cool thing for the past year now called Soul Retrieval. It's a Violet Alchemy and Akashic Record mix where I'm actually taking people into actually very much like we were doing what we're talking about, going into and finding these soul aspects that are stuck in these little patterns of beliefs and limitations, and sort of bringing them back to wholeness. So those are some of the things that we're doing. And on Saturday, January 17th, I think, at 8 a.m., we're going to do the Download Your Soul Code ceremony. So we'd love for everyone to join us.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, yeah. Well, thank you so much. And I enjoyed this. And thanks everybody for tuning in today. And then I'll be live again tonight, guys. So if you're seeing this, I'll be live at 7 p.m. Eastern with Ani and Indy are going to be on. So that'll be a good show. And yeah, and thank you guys. And thanks, Zara. And I'll see you